Hi, everyone, and welcome to Procure Pulse, the third-party services podcast that provides you with current trends, best practices, and the latest supply chain news to help you stay informed. I am your host, Mickey Meehan. I invite you to email us with questions or topics that you wish to hear covered at info@conductiv.com or connect with us on LinkedIn by following Conductiv or on Twitter at Conductiv Inc. Thanks so much for joining us today. Let's get started. Welcome back to another episode of Procure Pulse. Today we're discussing purchase service sourcing and how it can impact supplier diversity. Historically, the healthcare industry hasn't had a standardized way to measure and benchmark diverse spend, but here at Conductiv, we are aiming to change that. Lucky for us, today we have Ken Stinson joining us, Conductiv's Senior Director of Supplier Success. He was a key presenter for our diversity session at ARM this summer. Thanks for joining me today, Ken. Can you tell me a little bit about your background and how you found your way here to Conductiv?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for having me, Mickey. So my background is essentially in the healthcare supply chain space. I've been with the Premier family of companies for going on about 5 years now. And previous to this role I have now, I was a region director in the Southwest. So I managed a couple of accounts in Texas as well as in Tulsa, Oklahoma. In that role, you're member facing, but you're hands on with suppliers quite a bit as those suppliers are wanting to get, some engagement, if you will, with the members. And so I sort of did this role quasi, but just not directly dealing with all of the suppliers, but those who actually had interest in engaging with some of the members that I covered. And so following my role as an account manager, an opportunity with Conductiv presented itself for me to lead up the supplier relations and just assist our suppliers on this side to navigate through the layers of the GPO, whether it be getting engaged with a member or learning just how to operate and function as it relates to being a contracted supplier. In some instances, our suppliers, this is their first time contracting with the GPO, and that can be a little daunting at times. And so I serve as that go-to resource, and happy to be a part of the team.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing there, Ken. Maybe we can kind of dive right in here. This may seem like such a basic question, but why is supplier diversity so important for health systems right now at the moment?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think, first and foremost, it's the right thing to do. And I know that's a little cliche, but I think that, so often a lot of our larger suppliers within our industry are considered first. And at that time, they're able to basically, secure business that sort of locks some of the smaller guys out. And what we've learned is that, there are competent, small, minority-owned suppliers out there that could deliver just as good of quality of services and products, if you will, that these larger guys can. And so, I think focusing on supplier diversity is important because it's allowing us to forge the mindset to consider some of these competent suppliers. It's known that, supplier diversity initiatives can result into 133% on ROI. And, to date, we're seeing that about 1.4% of total indirect spend with healthcare institutions are with minority suppliers. So we've got a big gap that we could fill here. And I think we've got a big pool of competent suppliers that could assist us in filling this gap.
The thing that I think comes into play in some regards too is, if you look at the roots of healthcare here in America, like it was for a long time local community-based health systems that really didn't compete with each other that kind of, ruled the day. And in the age of mega mergers, that might have been forgotten. And I feel like, now folks are taking a step back and saying, hey, like we do need to invest in our local community, in our diverse partners, and do a much better job of that because it just was forgotten in the merger cost savings shuffle, if that makes sense. You
Yeah.
feel that way a little bit?
Yeah, I definitely agree, and I think, for what it's worth, it's one of those things that if we can continue to do our job as far as assisting with getting that word out there to, not only consider, your larger suppliers, but also, to consider those small minority owned businesses, it's not only making an impact towards diverse spend, but it's infusing into your community. And so, if you consider it from that perspective, that not only are you delivering care to your local community, but you're also infusing resources and funds into your community to assist it grow. So I feel like it's, a win-win to sort of reshift that focus and to get our healthcare institutions to start focusing a little bit more on those smaller local owned businesses.
Totally. And you'd hope that those local businesses are going to be more prideful as it comes to like serving the health system in their community. They know the patients, they may be or have been a patient themselves. So it's, you definitely hope that that all, comes together to create a better experience for patients overall.
No.
For sure. What so if you're a health system and you're, thinking about really leaning in and starting a diverse supplier program, what are some challenges or headwinds that you might face before you're able to make it happen?
I would say one of the first challenges is going to be that mindset of, small local minority owned business. They may not be able to live up to the expectation. And I think we have to eliminate that mindset, and we have to be open to shifting a little bit of business to some of these small and minority owned businesses. And what I mean by that is, while some of these suppliers cannot compete with the market leaders, but you have to be willing to take a sliver or a piece of that business and give the opportunity to a smaller minority owned business. And what I mean by that is, let's just think of, waste management, for instance. While they may not be able to secure all of the business within your system, there may be a service line that a minority owned business could deliver competent service levels on. And that's what I think our health systems have to start getting into the mindset of, is because you're considering a minority owned business does not mean that they're going to displace everything within that service line. And to be quite honest, that may not be their expertise, but you have to be willing to take that time and learn what that supplier's strengths are. And if you're able to do that and willing to take that time, I think what you'll find is, a lot of our diverse and minority owned businesses are their niche. And when you can identify what their niche is, I think is when you can tap into adopting more and more of these suppliers and tapping into their strengths. So I would say mindset is going to be one. um, you know, and I would say that mindset is also another thing that's that what gets impacted in the mindset, I would say, is that it's going to increase my cost. Um, I would say that that's a misconception that we have to get away from when we start to entertain purchasing from our diverse suppliers. It can lead to some, I would say, some cost increases, but that's not always the case. And in fact, I would say that it would be argued that you would probably encounter cost reductions as opposed to cost increases when dealing with your diverse suppliers. And I would just say um, also the misconception that they're smaller and they can't live up to the expectation. And what we found is that while some diverse suppliers are smaller, they tend to be a little bit more agile than some of the bigger suppliers, a little bit more respondent. And so, again, I think all of this ties back to just the overarching theme of the mindset and some of the misconceptions that have weighed in on the use of diverse suppliers.
Yeah, I hear you on that. And you said something interesting there, talking about niches and that these suppliers fit into. One of the executives that we work with said that purchase services is an area where you can bend the curve related to partnering with diverse suppliers, given that whether it's construction or other local services, those tend to be the ones where you have the best opportunity, versus large manufacturers. So that all being said, how do you see supply chains being able to incorporate thoughtful, proactive, and comprehensive, diverse strategies in purchase service sourcing?
Yeah, so I think for starters, it's one of those things that you definitely want to make it a part of your procurement process. And this is going to start with your policies and procedures. You want to implement some checkpoints within your sourcing processes that are going to rule in the consideration of these diverse suppliers. And this is going to require your teams taking an intentional look over the fence to see what type of suppliers are capable within the local region or that may have the ability or geographical reach to do things nationally. And so I would say embedding checkpoints into your processes that consider these diverse suppliers, adding in the inclusiveness of the research so that this is streamlined in any RFX that you are administering within your supply chain. You also want to have a steering committee. This will assist with accountability and ensuring that everyone keeps their eye on the ball. And it also allows you all to track your DEI KPIs. I always talk about the look back. And so you really can't know where you're going if you don't know where you've been. And so you definitely want to track, current state baseline, definitely do some quarterly check-ins and look backs to see how much progress have we made. And, what are you working towards? And so the thing is, let's develop a goal, set some metrics around what your departments want to achieve as it relates to DE&I. And I would just say, this goes back into putting it into your processes, but automating your sourcing just so that it enhances that visibility as well to those local and qualified suppliers. And, managing that diverse spend category as independent of the other categories, just so that it gives you that laser focus on that area. So I think those key components can assist supply chains with, definitely implementing, a keen focus on diversity suppliers, but also set them up for success as they want to scale that program.
So you mentioned a little bit about needing to track, looking back, and obviously at Conductiv here, we've been thinking about that as well, trying to build tools to really help our members be able to do that. You can't improve what you can't measure, kind of thing is I think where you were going. So can you tell us a little about Lumen Conductiv Supplier Diversity Initiative and the tools that Conductiv has related around supplier diversity?
Absolutely. So Lumen is a diversity, equity, and inclusion initiative by Conductiv, providing members with education, sourcing methodologies, and access to qualified, local, and diverse suppliers of purchase services. So we deploy Lumen through 3 avenues. The first being media outreach, which essentially provides educational resources and raises awareness related to supplier DE&I program strategies, supplier capabilities, as well as program successes and best practices. Our second avenue is managed services, which can assist our members with building a business case for an enhanced focus on supplier diversity, develop a customized supplier diversity program strategy, as well as strategy implementation. And our third avenue is our Conductiv Diversity Platform, which provides our users with actionable intelligence for tracking and improving spend with diverse suppliers. We feel that through Lumen, our members can create a stronger workforce by building community relationships that benefit their local communities, obtain tech-enabled diversity spend transparency, and identify more opportunities to bring diverse certified suppliers onto contract. They can gain knowledge to satisfy regulatory and corporate social responsibility requirements, and lastly, develop and implement standardized, diverse, equitable, and inclusive supplier sourcing strategies. We are extremely excited about Lumen and the impact it will have on supplier diversity.
That's awesome. I mean, I know it's been a focus of yours. You lead the team that really focuses on all suppliers, but this is certainly a big piece of that. So, related to that is the whole concept that, you need to be certified to be a diverse supplier. How does that process work? Is it prohibitive to certain suppliers, given they're sometimes small and it might be a sole proprietor and it's extra work? Like, what's your thoughts on just the whole certification process and what that might look like for the future?
Yeah. So, one of the biggest misconceptions in the industry is that you have to be certified. And I will say that you do not. You can self-certify, meaning, I could say that I have a minority-owned business. However, what we try to encourage our suppliers on is to become nationally certified. And the reason behind this, it's twofold. It actually gives a little bit more credibility when you're approaching members. And from a member standpoint, as they're tracking their diverse spend, it's great for audit integrity. And so it is one of those things that it's highly encouraged, but not required. Organizations, suppliers can self-certify, but again, it's one of those things that we feel that it could be considered as a best practice. The road to becoming certified is not that complex from a national standpoint, and we're talking, anywhere from the ranges of $300 to maybe $600. And so, we do see that there are more suppliers becoming certified. And I would also, encourage to push back a little, if you will, on some of the suppliers, if it's something that your institution prefers. Sometimes cost could be thrown up as a reason for why a supplier is not going to become certified. And we would just argue that it's a reasonable and worthy investment that suppliers should tap into. And, we're happy to provide members with guidance if they're needing information on, particular councils or associations that that suppliers could register with, as well as helping suppliers get guidance on that as well.
That's great. Now, I think, it wouldn't be right to let you leave here without pitching our audience here. So why should diverse suppliers join the Conductiv contract portfolio?
All right. Awesome question. So I would say, first and foremost, we're the best. It's a great opportunity for us to, onboard diverse suppliers, because we have that ability to be agile, just like them, focus on regional areas and try to give them that opportunity to scale within a GPO. I know most diverse suppliers aspire to be a part of a national GPO, and, you get that same flavor here within Conductiv without, having the long cycle to get on contract. And so that's one of our we'd say value adds, is to reduce that contract time and to try to see if we could assist our suppliers with getting engaged, sooner than later. We have that ability to sort of take that time and be a little bit more hands-on, boutique, and try to assist our suppliers with scaling, and especially in the services area. This is a time in a day where, indirect spend is becoming more and more utilized within the healthcare industry. And so as we focus on some of those, as we mentioned earlier, niched areas, where our suppliers could execute, that's our specialty. And so, I think with them being small and mighty, and with us being, having somewhat of those similar characteristics, I think we can create a great collaborative relationship.
That's great, Ken. I appreciate that. And I think one thing that you also do a great job on is just presenting the total value of suppliers, not putting them in a box, as sometimes can be the case with services when you're trying to match suppliers in a category, but really focusing on what's the total value that supplier can bring to the member, what's the impact going to be on patient care and the lives of the employees in the health system. And so I think that's another huge value add that you bring. So thank you so much for the time today, Ken. This was awesome getting to chat around this topic. I know you and Deborah Williams were awesome up on stage at ARM, so I'm glad we're able to follow up and debrief a little further.
I appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And for those of you listening out there, with Conductiv Supplier Diversity Analytics, our members are able to track how their diversity status can help them work towards a more diverse supplier base. So if you're a diverse supplier, schedule time to speak with our supplier success team, maybe even Ken Stinson here, and let's get you figuring out how you can learn a little more about our network and how we can connect you with our members. Thanks for the time today, and we look forward to seeing you back on the next Procure Pulse podcast.